I'm Pat Dooris. Welcome to The Story. We've been off for a break over the holidays. I had a great time with family. I hope that you did too. But now it's a brand new year and we're looking forward. One of the biggest things coming up is the reorganization of Portland city government. It will officially change 1 year from yesterday, but the actual change is expected much sooner. And that is our big story tonight. In case you're new here, in November of 2022, Portland voters are so sick of the way the city government worked, or more accurately did not work, that they approved the idea of getting rid of it altogether. A volunteer group of citizens had created a new plan that voters liked better, and so for the first time in more than 100 years, the city of Portland will soon get a brand new form of government. Still democracy, but a new structure. It's going to be such a big change that we are going to spend many nights over the next year bringing you in-depth information on what's happening and why. And we're going to begin tonight. In early November, I got a chance to talk with the man in charge of ushering in all this change. His name is Mike Jordan. He's currently the Chief Administrator Officer for the City of Portland and has served in several government leadership posts at both the state and local level.
What's been the biggest challenge so far?
Well, I think if you would have come to me a year plus ago and said, we'd like you to restructure city government, I probably would have said, if you give me 5 years, I can get that done and we can do it really well. So I'm fond these days of saying we're going stupid fast. However, there are advantages to that too. You know, when you have to make hard decisions about things, sometimes they get put off and we just don't have that choice. So we're working our way through the challenging decisions, and you probably saw council last week. We spent 7.5 quality hours together last week, and there were some hard decisions buried in there, and the council struggled with them a bit. But at the end of the day, we now have a framework for city government. Now we can budget into that framework so that we can hand it over to a new mayor and new city council in January 25.
He was referring to early November when the existing city council voted to accept his plan for the new city structure. And I thought it was interesting that he said they're moving stupid fast and how that can actually be a great advantage in such a big changing time. I also learned something new. In early November, everyone was reporting that the mayor wanted to take control of city bureaus from the city commissioners who run them now. Turns out not so much. It was not the mayor. It was that guy, Mike Jordan. Why did he want to do that? To start the structural changes early, like July 1st.
Exactly. The sooner we can begin to transition the way we do business and the way we operate, the more time we'll have to work out those things and find the kinks and to be honest, what doesn't get accounted for very often is that there are 7,000 human beings who live and breathe this city every day. And we're changing their world. We're kind of rocking their whole way of doing things. And that takes time for people to make adjustments. And so the change management work that needs to be done, that's what we were advocating for. We can do it with the commissioners staying in their traditional role. We'll just have to work with them together as a group as we make our decisions and move through transitioning. So it's doable, and we'll make it work.
Well, but I hear you saying it's a lot easier to do on paper than with these human beings in person.
Well, it always is, and I also try to remind people that are either critical of the council or critical of some decisions that the staff are making, or that none of us have ever done this before. And so we're kind of making this up as we go along. Now, we did talk to a number of other cities, Austin and Minneapolis and Baltimore and a number of others. We have a relationship with the International City Managers Association in Washington, D.C. and the National League of Cities. So we've been collecting lots of examples and data from other places. But until you have to do it yourself and do it for your community, it's a daunting task, and we're all, when we get to these hard decisions and we haven't done it before, it's hard for folks.
Now, the last time Portland changed its form of government was back in 1913. So, yeah, it really has been a while. And yes, I'm sure it's unsettling for the 7,000 city workers who now may wonder about their future, may worry about it too. I asked Jordan whether layoffs were part of the plan.
Well, I've been telling folks the point of the transition is not to reduce staff. However, having said that, I think over time, as we begin to take a more enterprise view of the whole city, I think we will find inefficiencies. We will find distributions of labor across the whole enterprise that really could stand to be redistributed. And in that work, I think we will find efficiencies. I can't name for you which positions we won't need in the future, but I think as a future city administrator and the deputies that are going to be over the service areas, as they work and as an executive team and look kind of horizontally across the whole enterprise, I think they will find things that they can make a lot more efficient.
It is that the same thing as saying you're going to find 4 or 5 people doing the exact same job that maybe you only need 2 for?
Well, I'll give you an example. We currently are 26 offices and bureaus, and we're kind of like the Encyclopedia Britannica. The only thing that links us together is we're alphabetical, and so we have acted that way as independent bureaus and offices for so long that and organizations, when they act that way, they tend to try and create everything they need inside themselves. And so we have 26 versions of that. And when we start to look more at an enterprise scale, I think we will find that we maybe have too many of one kind of employee, not enough of others. And oh, by the way, even if we think we have the right number, they're distributed badly across the whole enterprise. So, and I think when we think that in those terms, we also will be able to move human resource and be more nimble when we have an emergency in a particular place where we need more human resource for something and focus on some issue. And we struggle with that today, with the kind of independence of the bureaus and offices. And we report up to 5 different people right now, and have now for decades. And those people are not accountable to each other. They're only accountable to the citizens every 4 years. And so we're a place where you might say everybody's in charge and nobody's in charge. And so we struggle with things that take multiple bureaus to apply themselves. And to be honest, Pat, I think it's a little difficult for Portlanders to get their heads around the fact that we are a big city and we have big city problems. And almost all the ones we face are multidimensional, and they will take more than one bureau or office or department to solve them. And so we will have to be able to muster multidisciplinary solutions to really complex problems. And I think this change is a big step in that direction.
That all sounds like a pretty good description of the dysfunction within Portland's city government right now. It will be fascinating to see how all this comes about. Again, Mike Jordan and team have a goal of switching the form of government for Portland beginning July 1st to sort of stress test it and see what's working and what's not before the official legal switchover, which is January 1st of 2025. Now, it's your turn to chime in. What do you think about the city of Portland's new government structure? We've told you already that it's going to cost a lot more to run each year, around $24 million compared to $11 million now. Some of you think the expanded city council of 12 members is going to be crazy, have too many cooks in the kitchen. Send us your thoughts, will you? Let us know what you think. The email is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Well, the first day of 2024 yesterday not only marked the beginning of a brand new year, but the first day that dozens of new laws took effect here in Oregon and in the great state of Washington. So the Story team thought that we would highlight a few of those that we kind of think are maybe flying under the radar. Let's start in Oregon. House Bill 3235 created Oregon's first ever state-based child tax credit. It's a credit of $1,000 per child between the ages of 0 and 5, but only for families earning $30,000 a year or less. Lawmakers say 55,000 kids and their families in the state will benefit from this. Parents can apply for the credit when they file their tax return. Senate Bill 82 is a big deal for those of you who live in areas prone to wildfires. Last year, the state came out with a map showing where wildfires are most likely to happen. Well, people living in those areas kind of freaked out. They worried it would jack up their insurance rates and tank their property values. So the state pulled back the map. This new law says that insurance companies cannot increase rates just because the state map puts the property in a fire-prone area. The companies can still raise rates, but they have to jump through a lot of hoops to do it, and they have to give the owners several steps that they could take to lower their risk and lower the rate hike. For those of you with lead foots out there, watch out. House Bill 2095 calls for expanded use of photo radar for traffic enforcement. Before this year, only the state of Oregon and then a handful of cities could use photo radar. But this new law, well, that throws it wide open. It expands the option to all cities in the state, assuming they pay for the cost of operating the systems. The law also eliminates restrictions on the number of hours that photo radar can be used, meaning they could be active all the time. And there's a new tool in the toolbox for prosecutors across Oregon when it comes to organized retail theft. Senate Bill 340 ratchets up consequences for theft. People who are convicted of organized retail theft are automatically sentenced to 2 years in prison if they already have a previous conviction for things like aggravated theft, burglary, or robbery. SB 340 also gives prosecutors and law enforcement more flexibility when and where they file charges if the thefts take place across county lines. The new law is already one that the Multnomah County DA's office says will help in their efforts to take down people that they call, quote, chronic professional thieves. Now let's touch on a couple of new laws regarding the drug and housing crises in Oregon. Senate Bill 1043 requires hospitals, long-term facilities, and drug treatment centers to provide patients with at least 2 doses of Narcan upon discharge if the patient was there for treatment of an opioid use disorder. Senate Bill 529 makes addiction services more available to people in jail and prison. The new bill requires drug treatment be available to them the first day they start serving their sentence, which is not how things operated previously, according to the state senator, Michael Dembro.
The only time that adults in custody can get access to drug therapy is just before they're released. And that is really kind of crazy. Substance use disorder is a chronic illness that needs to be treated as soon as possible.
And finally, House Bill 2984, it allows local governments to convert commercial buildings into affordable housing without requiring a zone change.
What we're trying to do with these commercial conversions is prompt all of us to think differently about how we do housing and how we can do it more quickly.
And how about new laws across the Columbia in the state of Washington? Well, there are some big ones. Most Washington employers are now banned from testing for cannabis during the hiring process. There are several exemptions, including law enforcement and airline positions. Washington legalized recreational cannabis use way back in 2012. When it comes to public safety, there's a new Washington law that requires a 10-day waiting period for purchasing or transferring any kind of gun. The Alliance for Gun Responsibility pushed for that law. They say the waiting period can help prevent emotionally charged suicides and homicides.
Waiting periods are proven to be a really wonderful policy option for mitigating the impulsive and temporary emotional behavior around immediate access to a firearm.
The law also requires the person buying the gun to have completed a firearm safety course within the past 5 years. And how about this one? Washington's minimum wage is jumping to $16.28 an hour. That's more than 3% higher than last year and is the highest in the nation. It's more than double the federal minimum wage, which is just $7.25 an hour. Coming up next on The Story, it's one of those nightmare scenarios that many imagined during our reporting on the ambulance response times in Multnomah County. A man riding a TriMet bus experiencing severe chest pains with no ambulance available. How fire crews got creative to get the man to the hospital. and just how many times firefighters used so-called non-traditional transports last year. And then later, an update to a story that many of you will remember. Blair Best helped get a pregnant woman named Velma off the streets of Portland. And since then, KGW viewers stepped up in a big way to help her navigate life as a new mom. Stick around for her reaction when we surprised her with your generosity. That's ahead when the story returns. Now to the shortage of ambulances in Multnomah County. It's a big problem that can leave people stranded, and it's happened again. This time at 2 a.m. on December 31st. Firefighters called for an ambulance to help a man on a bus with chest pains. No ambulances were available, so they used the bus to bring the man to the hospital. What's that tell you about how our system's working? Evan Watson reports.
Desperate times may call for desperate measures, but Portland firefighters like Captain Dennis Bell are having to think outside the box more and more frequently.
Proactively, we have to have a plan B. There's no stop, scratch your head. We have to be able to think on our feet.
At 2 a.m. on New Year's Eve, Bell responded to a 911 call. A man had chest pains on a TriMet bus. Fearing a heart attack, Bell knew the man needed to get to the hospital, but AMR was at level 0. No ambulances were available, and after 20 minutes, firefighters couldn't wait any longer. Bell said the patient couldn't fit in the fire rescue. It was time to get creative.
We had a wide open vacant bus. Fortunately, there wasn't a lot of other riders on the bus at 2:30 in the morning, and that it just dawned on me that was really the only option that we had.
The TriMet bus driver, Joseph Wiggins, says it wasn't the first medical emergency on his bus, but it was probably the most dramatic.
I just wanted to get him to the hospital and get help for him. It reminded me of taking my father to the hospital for the same reason.
While this unique hospital transport worked out, Bell says if the man would have gone into cardiac arrest on the bus, it could have been trouble.
You're going to bake cookies, you want to be in the kitchen. If you're going to transport a patient, I'd just assume be in an ambulance, not a TriMet bus, because you have to not only prepare what's happening right now, but what could happen. And a TriMet bus just wouldn't be set up for that.
Portland Fire reports at least 22 non-traditional transports in 2023. Situations where firefighters found other ways to get patients to a hospital because of the lack of ambulances. The Fire Bureau just added a function in the fall that lets firefighters report a non-traditional transport. Fire trucks and rescue vehicles aren't set up for this. Water tanks and other equipment take up room. But firefighters and trained paramedics like Bell know when minutes matter.
It's crucial for the patient outcome. I mean, cardiac muscle dies over time, so they have to get more definitive care than what we can do in the field.
What are the challenges or frankly concerns with doing that and with doing that more frequently?
This is not a solution. That was a function fixity at the time. So yeah, no, the proper staffing has to be accomplished. How AMR does that, I'm not sure. I don't envy the position they're in.
Ambulance provider AMR says its hands are tied by Multnomah County's 2 paramedic requirement for ambulances. The company says it can't hire and retain enough paramedics to run a full staff, so its response times have fallen off, calling the current situation a crisis. Multnomah County health leaders say 2 paramedics provide better patient care. County commissioners fined AMR $500,000 for late responses in November.
This is a hot topic, and I'm sure it's one that's gaining and demanding a lot of attention. So there's a lot of people working on it, and something does need to change.
Portland Fire and TriMet did not have any updates on the patient's condition. Evan Watson, reporting for KGW News.
Still to come on the story. After Blair Best featured a pregnant woman named Velma that she helped get off the streets, many of you stepped forward to help in a big way. We surprised Velma with your supplies. She called it a miracle. Stick around for that when the story returns. Let's end our first show of the new year on a high note because, you know, there's a lot of bad news in the world, but there's a lot of good stuff going on too. This is an update to a story that many of you wrote to us about. Blair Best spent 9 months trying to get a young woman named Velma there off of the streets of Portland. The clock was ticking because Velma was expecting a child. Blair partnered with the nonprofit Join and was able to get Velma into housing just a few weeks before her due date. Well, Velma did have a baby boy just before Christmas. Now she's settling into her apartment, her new apartment, and that's where you came in. A loyal viewer of the story, along with many of her neighbors, saw our original report and wanted to make sure that Velma had everything she needed to care for her little boy. So they dropped off a carload of baby supplies here at the station. And then Blair brought it all to Velma.
So this is stroller.
Sweet. Home from the hospital with a newborn in her arms.
Oh, shh. Mom is here. Shh.
Velma Carter was met with a gift she never expected.
And I'm grateful for all this because...
Thanks to KGW viewers who donated bins of baby supplies, along with a new stroller, wash tub, and lots of clothes.
Thank you to whoever did this and everyone that chipped in on this. This is amazing and a miracle. You've really changed my life. It's just been a blessing after blessing since I met you outside Roots. Thank you.
That day was 1 year ago this month. We met Velma outside the office of Street Roots in Old Town. She was homeless.
It feels like there's no way for us to get off the street.
And living out of a broken down RV.
Not the best, but it's home. I'm the rich homeless, you could say. I'm part of the 1% of homeless that have stuff that ain't in a tent.
Now she has so much more.
Hi, my boy. Hi, my baby Cody.
I was fretting on how I was going to figure out a baby bath or a swing or a stroller. I mean, I'm running on TriMet still.
It's her determination and drive that got her this far.
I see her motivation to succeed.
And little does she know, inspired others along the way.
Such a determined person who never gave up or turned to drugs.
Her story left our viewers with a sense of hope.
This was really inspiring.
That they gave right back to her.
I have a village that helps me raise them.
Nice.
Slowly but surely.
Blair Best, KGW News.
Oh, that's so nice, seeing that burrito wrap and everything that you did for her. Thanks, you guys. That was great. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. Remember, the story, our collective story, well, that never ends. By the way, the good stuff's coming your way next. You don't want to miss that. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.